Hey everyone, thanks for joining us for today's episode of the Doobert webinar series. So today we're going to be looking at how we can create our rescue relays. So this is a really exciting feature within the transport module because it allows state-to-state and longer distance transports because it involves multiple volunteers. So it's a really interesting functionality that I'm excited to share with you guys today. Checking out our first slide for our overview, our rescue relays typically involve multiple volunteers because it splits the trip into legs of around 50-60 miles, so it's really manageable for one volunteer to handle. And then once you get 5-6 volunteers for a longer transport, it's a really great process for teamwork getting the transport done. So like I said, this is typically associated with your state-to-state transports or anything long distance over 50 miles. And then the functionality allows you to either auto split your transport or you can split it manually yourself too. So there's good features to both. So for example, if you don't really know the best place for your volunteers to stop and transfer that pet, let the dog go outside and give it some water, things like that. It's really great when the system will break that up for you into really manageable bite-sized pieces. Or if you prefer splitting up the trip yourself, you can do that as well. If you're familiar with the area or you run this transport a lot and you like to have set locations, you can definitely split it yourself. So getting to know a little bit about the transport module is that it is completely volunteer based for those who will fill spots on your transports. So what the volunteers will do is sign up on Doobert at Doobert.com and they're going to choose the Just Me option for a sign up, and that's where they're going to create their volunteer profile. And we do verify our volunteers to make sure they're as safe as we can. So we like to check information such as their government ID, their pet vaccine records, and we also have them re-verify their information yearly. And then the great thing about the volunteers is that they have transport preferences, so the volunteers can choose transports that work for them. So that's really great because you have a lot of different preferences that might be able to pick up your transport, but it's also really good for the volunteers because it gives them a lot of flexibility in what they want to volunteer for. So looking at how we create our rescue relays, what we're going to do first is add our information. So we're going to go ahead and name our transport. We're going to verify our location, make sure that it's correct for our organization, and then we're going to set our pickup and drop-off dates. So these are totally up to you, and depending on your transport, they are customizable. And then we're going to go ahead and add our receiving information. So we're going to put in an organization name or wherever the pet is going to be going. And we're also going to put in the receiving address, and then we're also going to send them a run sheet. So the good thing about the run sheet is that it breaks down all of the volunteers who have signed up for the trip, as well as the location that they're going to be volunteering on within that entire transport. So that's really great to send to the receiving organization as well, or receiving rescue shelter, anything like that, because then they also have visibility on the transport. So I highly recommend doing that, which we'll get into in our demo. And then looking at how we can add and manage our transport details. The great thing about this is that we can confirm all the transports once all of the legs of the trip have been filled by the Doobert volunteers. So once you check your transports and you make sure that every single leg has a volunteer that has signed up, we're going to go ahead and confirm that. So then that's going to confirm it to the drivers and let them know that this transport is going ahead. And then we can edit, cancel, or adjust any of the trip dates or legs as well if you have to make any changes. So it's really great for flexibility because obviously things come up. So it's great that you have the option to do that. And then we can also communicate with our drivers, so we can email them as well. So that is another really great communication aspect for you to check out if you're interested. And then we can attach any additional documents for the transport if we want to. So for example, any information on the pet that you want all the drivers to be able to have if needed, you can do that. And then we can view our trip map, which is also really interactive, I think. It's going to show you the route that all of your volunteers would be taking. And then we can also share our transport on social media. So the great thing about that is it's a really great way to get your community involved, get your followers involved, and also see if they're interested in signing up for a leg of your transport. So that is all I have for our slides for right now. So now we're going to jump into the system and start demoing everything we just talked about here, and then we're going to come back to our slides for a quick Q&A at the end. Alright, so now I'm logged in as an organization, so this is what you're going to see right when you log into your organization's account. So one thing I want to point out before we get into our creating transport process is over here we have this videos tab. So if I click on that, this is a great resource if you're ever navigating the transport module and you have any questions, things like that. We have an entire series on the transport module, so you can go ahead and find the specific topic that you're looking for and play a quick 1 to 2 minute video, and it's a really great resource because it will give you the process in a really short amount of time. So definitely check that out. So now we're going to get into the rescue relay, which we all came here for. So I'm going to go ahead and click on our transport module right here, and I'm going to click on new rescue relay. And then we have a couple options right here where we can click new rescue relay, drafts, or manage our preferred users. But for our webinar, I'm going to just click on a new rescue relay. So now we have our options again, and then if you ever want to check out this little learn more video, you can do that. So it is here as well. But we're going to go ahead and click add a new rescue relay again. And if you have any rescue relays that you'd like to run consistently, you can always use the copy feature as well, or check out any of your drafts. So if you have any of the drafts, it's going to ask you this question. You have an incomplete transport and we've automatically saved it as a draft. Do you want to continue with this transport? So I'm going to click no because we're going to start from scratch. But if you have one in the drafts and you want to pick up where you left off, you can always click yes for this. All right, so now we're going to go ahead and get started. So first, we're going to name our transport. So I am going to name mine Remy's New Home, assuming that she is going to her forever home for this one. And we're going to go ahead and choose our pickup date. So typically we like to schedule these out just to give it enough time to get all these spots filled and give the volunteers some notice if they're interested in volunteering. So I highly recommend doing that. So I'm going to schedule this out a little bit. So we're going to put it as a little over a week for May 7th for a pickup, and then our drop off, we're going to go ahead and give that some extra time as well, and we're going to do the 10th or 11th, whatever you prefer, but I'm going to go with the 10th. So now down here we have our sending party information. So right here, your organization's information is going to auto-populate, which is really great. So you always want to just verify that this is all correct and basically in line with the sending information. And then we're going to go ahead and put in our receiving party. So I'm going to go ahead and just put in Lena's Rescue as the organization name. And we're going to put in myself as a contact again. And then I'm going to put in a contact email. So we're going to do Lena plus Remy at Doobert.com. Whoops. And now we can put in our phone number, but I'm just going to put in all zeros for that one. And then if you are a 501c3 and you want to flip this tab, you can go ahead and do that. And then as you can see right here, we have our send a run sheet, and these are both flipped on because we want to send that to both the sending party and the receiving party, just so everyone has an idea of what's going on with the transport. So down here, we're going to have our to and from information. So right here, this is going to auto-populate in based on your organization's location that you put in when you sign up. So now we're going to go ahead and put our drop-off in. So I'm going to go ahead and put in a Florida city, state, and zip code. And then we can see a little bit of a longer rescue relay just for the example. So as you can see, once I start putting in my zip code, we'll get it right there. So we're going to click on that one, and here is where we can put in a little bit of information about the pets who are going on this transport. So for example, why Remy might be going on the transport, where she might be going, anything exciting. So we're going to go ahead and say, let's get Remy home. You guys will learn that my spelling is so bad. And then we'll put, let's reserve a spot to help get Remy to her forever home. She is being adopted in Florida by a family. So that is just a little bit of an idea of what you can put for the backstory. If you have a little bit more information to share, a little bit less, whatever you want, or you don't have to add one at all. And then down here is where we're going to go ahead and add our animal information. So this is really important. So we can either choose an existing animal profile from our organization. So if we use our animals tab, or we've created the animal profile within CCM, anything like that, and it is already existing, we can go ahead and pick from my organization. So it will just pull up a list of all of our existing animal profiles, or we can go ahead and manually enter all of the details. And sometimes this does take a little bit longer to load because it is kind of a long list, but once it loads, I will show you what the options look like. So here are our existing animals. So we can choose some out of here and check the boxes. We can choose multiple, or see any not on a transport versus already on a transport, things like that. But we're going to just go through and manually add them for this example. So we're going to go ahead and put Remy. She is a dog, and we're going to say that she is a lab. And whether they're male, neutered, female, spayed. So we're going to go ahead and click female spayed for her, and she is 65 pounds. And you can choose what they will be traveling on the transport with. So we're going to say that she's traveling with all of the above, and if all that looks good and we want to go ahead and add a photo, we can always do that. So that's always a good idea if you want the volunteers to see a picture of the pet that they'll be riding with. So that is always there if you're interested. And then say we have 2 animals that we want to add on this transport, we can go ahead and click add more right here. But for this one, we're just going to do 1. But if you are looking to transport a large number of animals on a rescue relay, I highly recommend breaking up your transports into just 1-2 animals per transport, just because with the volunteers' preferences, they have kind of space requirements within their vehicles. So you always want to consider what somebody might be willing to accept in terms of that transport. So I highly recommend breaking them up into 2 animals, 1-2 animals, if you are looking to send a large amount, just because you're going to get the best results, especially on the weekends when people aren't typically working and they have more time to volunteer. So I highly recommend those couple of tips and tricks for getting your volunteers reserved on the trip. So if all of this looks good and we have all of our information filled out, we can go ahead and click Save and Continue. So now we end up on the select the type of transport we want to do. So this is where we can choose to auto split, or we can manually split, sorry. So for our example, I'm going to auto split because this is a little bit of a longer trip, Wisconsin to Florida. So I don't know the best place for the volunteers to stop, so I'm going to trust the system and have the auto split feature break up the trip for me. So we're going to click on this, and then here we can choose our preferences. So we can choose our distance of each leg. So 60 miles sounds good to me. That seems pretty manageable. And then we have a handoff time between legs in minutes. So we have 30 minutes for that pet to get out of the car, stretch their legs, do a little walking, things like that. So however much time you want to put there is up to you. And then you have the earliest leg start times and then the latest finish times here as well. So that's going to give the system a little bit of guidance on how it's going to break up those trip legs and schedule that. So if you have any preferences, you can always go ahead and edit these clocks right here as well. And then if you are on our pro plan, you can take advantage of the preferred volunteers. And if you have a network of volunteers that you want to send this out to, they would be in your preferred volunteers, so definitely keep that in mind. But for this one, we're just going to stick with the normal volunteers, so we're going to click on continue. Okay, so it says our split leg is still in process, so now we can see here that we have our entire trip split into legs. So this is really great because we can see all of our stops and all of the progress that our pets are going to be making while they are going to be sent down to their new home in Florida. So that's really exciting. And then up here we have a couple different options. So if this all looks good, we can go ahead and click publish transport, but we're going to wait a second and go through some of these other ones first. We can save and exit. We can add any additional info here if we need to. We can upload the legs, view the map as well if we want to see the route that they're taking. For example, we'll click on the view map just because it is a fun and interactive way to see your trip. So this is a little bit of a longer transport, but these are all going to highlight the different volunteers with the different colors. So going back up to the top, we can also add our ground leg, aviation leg, or overnight leg. So I highly recommend adding an overnight leg if you have a days-long transport, because then it's going to give that pet a place to stay during the night. So I highly recommend doing that if you are doing a very long transport. So we can click add an overnight leg and where they will be going. So now once all of this looks good, we can either edit any of these if, for example, we don't like them, but I think they all look good to me, so we're going to click save and publish. So now this is going to send out an email to all of the Doobert volunteers within the area of the transport to let them know that they have the option to sign up for this transport. So now we can see this is our sign up page. So if we ever want to share this, we can. So right here, this is typically more of like a volunteer front page that we're seeing. So if we were a volunteer, we would see this sign up for a leg and we would go ahead and click on that if it was a route that we are interested in. So that is what your volunteers will see on basically on their front of the transport. But if this all looks good and once all these trips, or not trips, once all of these trip legs are filled and every single volunteer is good and signed up, we're going to go ahead and click on confirm. So what that's going to do is send out the email to all the volunteers letting them know that every spot on this transport has been filled and that it is good to go. So that's just kind of giving them that extra confirmation. But down here, before we click that, we have any couple actions right here. We can cancel, edit the legs, transport, or email our drivers. Like I said, you have that communication feature here. And then we have our sending and receiving information. We have our sending party, our transport details. This is our little backstory, our animal within the transport. Their little photo would show up here. If we add one, our additional information. These are our files if we add any, and the signups. So this is what your volunteers will see. They'll see the sending, transport details, all of this. So that's a really great, keeps the volunteers informed about the transport so they can determine whether it is a good fit for them. Then we also have our view map here option as well. But this all looks good to me, and say all of our legs are filled. So we're going to go ahead and click confirm. And then it says, are you sure you want to confirm? And then this is where you can go ahead and add any people you want to send a run sheet to. So if you have any additional team members that you want to get a copy of this, you can put in their name and email address, but I don't have that for my situation, so I'm going to go ahead and click confirm. So now we can see that our transportation was confirmed successfully, so that's really exciting. So here we have all of these completed spots, so these will be flipped as the flipped on as the transport is progressing, so that's really great. And then, for example, if any of the volunteers aren't able to make the trip anymore, you can always unconfirm and wait for another volunteer to pick up that leg. But other than that, that is really about it for our rescue relay transport webinar. So now we're going to jump into our Q&A. Okay, so now for our Q&A, we're just going to go through a couple of questions that we get on our demos or anything we sometimes get to our help email. So really anything that just pertains to the rescue relays. So our first question is, you say that the rescue relays are for transports over 50 miles. Why is that? So great question. The reasoning behind that is within the transport module, you have a couple different transport options. So the rescue relays specifically are more of a teamwork model, whereas anything less than 50 miles we would consider a local ride. So that is usually only one volunteer doing that local ride versus the rescue relay has multiple. So depending on the type of transport that you're looking to set up, you have a couple different options versus a longer or a shorter transport. And then our next question is, can I share my transport on social media? So great question, and I'm going to show you guys where you can grab that link within the system. So I'm back in the system. I'm going to jump over to our transport tab right here, and I'm going to go into our dashboard. And right here we have our transport that we just created, so I'm going to click on this one. And I'm going to unconfirm it for right now. And once that looks good, this is the page that we can share on Facebook, anything like that. So we can just grab this link up here, copy that, and post it on our Facebook, put it on our Instagram, or share it anywhere that your organization chooses to. And once that person, for example, who sees it, clicks on the link, they'll be able to sign up for a leg. But it will ask them to sign up on Doobert as a volunteer before they can actually sign up for the leg. So definitely keep that in mind. But this would be the page link that you can share with anybody. So that is all I have for today's webinar. So thank you guys so much for joining me, and I hope to see you in our future webinar.